Focus is a case study for the headquarters of Cherokee Investment Partners, which is a private equity fund and angel investor based in North Carolina. It's a company where I was an employee for many years, and they're also a client, and I still serve as an advisor. So this particular project was a pet project, a baby of mine, if you will. This became a LEED Platinum project, and we'll say a few more words about what that meant, as well as show some pictures of the space. So at the highest level, this project mattered to the organization because our investment theses revolved around environmental categories. So we were an investor in environmentally polluted real estate. We call them brownfields here in the U.S. On the angel investments, a host of energy and environmental early stage company investments, as well as solar project investments on top of landfills as well. So this was about kind of walking the talk, if you will, proving this really was part of our core, not just nice window dressing or greenwashing, right? So a few stats here. So this building was the first LEED Platinum green building project in North Carolina. So again, LEED being the dominant third-party certification program in the world, put up by the U.S. Green Building Council. It was also one of the first 10 LEED Platinum historic buildings in the world. So, many believe that historic building retrofit and reuse, or historic rehab, short for rehabilitation, as it's called, that is at odds with green building. The reality is it's not. Typically, the goals of the programs are more aligned than not around things like goals like material reuse, let's say. Some stats on the project. So 100% fewer greenhouse gas emissions. In part, that was achieved through a roughly 30% less energy use for this building compared to other similar buildings. The other part of that, 100%, was achieved through purchasing third-party verified carbon offsets from trusted developers and usually renewable energy projects offsite. Water use, 50% less water use for this project, which was very easy to achieve. And I would say for many projects, water efficiency is increasingly easy to do. And that's because many of I would say perhaps all of the world's major water fixture focused companies, Kohler, Toto, etc., water efficiency is a dominant part of their current branding. So, trusted products from long-standing companies it's easier to find options to acquire. And it's worth noting that 50% is compared to a new building. If you compared our water use to existing buildings in downtown Raleigh, it's more like 70% less water use. Now, this mattered, especially when the project was complete, because there was a very severe drought in North Carolina. Let's hop in the building here, as it were. So let's talk about material reuse and daylighting. In terms of material reuse, the floors, ceilings, and the standing beams, those are all original, so call it 100 years old or so. Now, by U.S. standards, that's old. I realize for some of you watching in other countries, that would seem like a new project. The other, if you look at the workstation there, the wood, paneling or siding, it comes from repurposed old beams in other kind of dilapidated, forgotten buildings in the area. As far as daylighting, the ceiling was intentionally painted bright white. That helps to reflect daylighting further, deeper into the space. The windows conveniently are very large for this old building. We also chose to put the executive workstations back in the back, right here, not on the windows, as would typically occur. And because of that, more employees benefited from views to the outside and daylighting. This is the conference room. That exposed ceiling you're looking at, it's unique, right? Not every company would choose that or could get away with that. But however, that industrial focus was part of our business, therefore it made sense and worked. The table there is actually made of a bunch of smaller tables joined together like a very simple puzzle, which means it can also come apart when there are larger functions, say with 100 people back in this room. This kind of multi-use space is aligned with green building goals and economic goals because you don't need to build extra square footage, let's say, to house uses in separate spaces. You instead put them in one shared space. The tables are also made from a product referred to as MDF, medium density fiberboard, which is something like sawdust glued together with a particular glue which does not off-gas VOCs, volatile organic compounds. Here we're in the workroom. So the story here is about team buy-in. So the tables, what we're going to focus on, those tables look like granite. They're not. They're actually made of post-industrial aluminum waste. That is to say, it's waste inside of the factory. Those aluminum shards are bound together by a resin made from old eyeglasses, right? So this is post-consumer waste. So it's hard to imagine these things until they're actually created. So the story is amazing, but it's also the tables are really beautiful. So the piece about kind of team buy-in is this: as we went around kind of engaging different departments at the firm about our green building goals and what was being selected, the accounting team in particular was very excited about these tables, and we love that, of course. Now, it's a bit contrary to stereotypes. Not that stereotypes are worth much, but look, these tables cost a little more, right, than other tables out there. So this was the accounting team choosing a more expensive table. My dad's an accountant, so that sounds kind of funny. But anyway, the point is, we made this a kind of distributed, all hands on deck, exciting opportunity as we recreated this space, and it led to a lot more kind of group ownership, if you will. This image is to highlight the role of culture and communication. In many work settings, there are cubicles or walls, certainly that are taller, more closed, hidden, if you will. In this case, we chose shorter workstations with glass to facilitate better team interaction. The other part of the story is that the workstations have 80% recycled content in them, which, when the producers moved in that direction of recycled content, it was about cost savings. But that was kind of before green building was cool, right? Now they're benefiting from greater market pull, right? Greater market demand for that kind of product. Some other things you can't see here: the HVAC system, the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system, was one of the most efficient on the market when this building was complete. You also cannot see the solar thermal panels on top of the roof. So again, with green building, as we've discussed, some things you can see, some things you can't. Both are important, sometimes for different reasons. Key conclusions. So most importantly, green buildings do not generally cost much more, if any more, than conventional buildings. This project in particular costs less on a dollars per square foot basis than comparable buildings for our kind of company in this area, in this city. So if asked what the payback period was, it is instant. It's irrelevant. Furthermore, there are kind of ancillary, intangible but important benefits from kind of bringing in partners, stakeholders to our space, where they feel like we're a trusted party who really walks the talk here. Number two there, get team buy-in. So you need a lot of champions, bring them into the design process, engage their creativity. We uncovered ideas I didn't have for sure by engaging the broader team. You want to create multiple quote-unquote owners, right? Many owners of this green building idea and resulting space. The final one there, tell others about your experience. Share lessons learned, offer tours, write articles. And the neat thing is that as you're doing that, while you're kind of spreading the word, lessons learned, positive and sometimes negative, right? Not everything is perfect. You're helping to advance the market, helping to make this easier for someone else to also kind of advance the green building market growth. But you're also branding yourself as an expert and or your business as an expert at the same time. And finally, questions for you. Now, as I've mentioned before, I really want you to maybe put the video on pause, get your tablet, or maybe even better yet, get pen and paper and write down answers to some of these questions. You don't need to write a book. A few bullets would be fine, but this process of literally writing down answers to these questions is how you engage, retain, and grow from this information. It's true for me, for sure. That's been my experience. All right, so the first one. Is there a building or real estate development that could use a green building product or service you're working of or thinking about, right? Perhaps the building or project belongs to a family friend or your current employer, but consider them as a focus group, right? Or as a potential pilot project partner to test your idea. The middle one there, what other industries or skills do you want to become more familiar with in order to be a green building entrepreneur? Unfortunately, we can't know everything all the time. Don't tell anybody, but I don't know everything either. So what other sectors could those be that relate to green building? Maybe it's architecture, mechanical or electrical engineering, construction, marketing, brokerage, or appraisals. Make a list of a couple, pick a number. Spend 2 hours over the next 3 weeks learning more about one or two of those additional sectors that are ancillary but important to help you reach your goals, to speak someone else's language. The last, what other credentials can you earn to make your green building startup or corporate initiative more trusted? As examples, consider the accredited professional or AP designation, which I did many years ago, for LEED, WELL, sites, or similar third-party certification programs. Again, pause the video, take some notes down, come back to it. With that, we'll see you on the next video.